Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Tommy. I am a human nutrition student and researcher at the university. My job in this type of videos is to summarize what I learn during the classes at the university. And today we are going to continue the series of videos of the cooking technology. So this video is going to be about the culinary area. So without further wait, let's begin. Okay, so to understand what happens in the culinary area, we first need to know what the culinary area is. So we define culinary area as the physical place where culinary processes happen and where we convert a contaminated food, a potentially contaminated food that maybe has some bacteria or some parasites, into a decontaminated food. This is the definition of culinary area. Inside of culinary area, there are some dangers of contamination, and there are many types of contamination. We talked about bacterial or parasite biological contamination here, but you have to know that there are more types of contamination. In the food or in the culinary area, we can have three types of contamination mainly. Yes, because not only the food can be contaminated, but also the whole culinary area can be contaminated. In that case, it's even worse. So we have physical, chemical, and biological contamination. Physical is like objects, some glass, some stones, some personal items, some nails, whatever that goes into the food, which is worse in that case for physical objects to be in the food. It can be by mistake brought to the dining room and served to some people. Then we have the chemical contamination, which is, for example, heavy metals or pesticides, cleaning products, whatever that may contaminate or the culinary area where we process the food or the food. And then we have biological. Biological is like toxic mushrooms, what we talked about earlier, parasites, fungi, and mainly bacteria and viruses. I talked about biological contamination of food in the video I have in my channel called Food Sanity. You can find various bacteria and viruses explained in detail there if you are interested in learning more about food contamination. So now let's have a look at bacterial contamination. We can find bacteria that are potentially harmful for us in raw primary materials, such as fresh meat, for example, fresh eggs. And then also transform without heat. So this means that if, for example, in dishes that we prepare without using heat, there can be some bacteria because without using heat we didn't kill it. An example of this is mayonnaise. We prepare mayonnaise with raw eggs, but we don't heat up the egg, we don't cook the egg, and the end result is still raw. And then we can find bacteria contained in open containers. This is, for example, when we left some rice without a cover. Well, it can be contaminated by a bacteria which is known as Bacillus cereus, and that's very harmful because it's beta hemolytic, which is not very good for us indeed. We don't want a pathogenic bacteria inside our rice. And this Bacillus cereus is very common to find in what is called the fried rice, the rice that has been left over and then eaten at room temperature without heating it up again. And then we can find bacteria in poorly preserved food, because if we do a bad preservation of the food, for example, we do not put the mayonnaise again in the fridge, well, chances are the salmonella will grow even bigger, contaminate the whole mayonnaise. So, having this in mind, we can say that the danger zone is between 5 degrees and 60 degrees. If we have something over 60 degrees, let's say 70 degrees, is fine to kill most of the bacteria, and below 5 degrees Celsius is good to inactivate the majority of the bacteria we can find in food. Then you have to know this concept that's cross-contaminations. This is when something contaminated transmits viruses or bacteria to a non-contaminated food. And this is the main cause of food-transmitted diseases. You have to know that cross-contaminations is, for example, when we cut some, let's say, some turkey or some chicken, And then in the same place, we cut up some vegetables. Well, guess what's going to happen? Well, the salmonella that comes from the chicken is going to be transmitted to the vegetables that they don't contain that bacteria. So that's a cross-contamination. Moving on, you have to know that there is a legislation for the hygiene in a kitchen. Yes, because these legislations must guarantee hygiene for the elaboration, distribution, and trade of prepared food. The hygiene standards are meant to be for the premises. I mean, each zone of the culinary area must have this. Then the kitchen itself, where the culinary processes occur, where the cooking processes occur, all the equipment is with what we cook, and also the staff must follow some hygiene normatives. Okay, so now that we have talked about the dangers in the culinary area, we have to know that there are some zones inside the culinary area. The first one is the ingredients preparation. They are called cold rooms, normally 12 degrees Celsius. This room, this area, this zone is connected with the warehouses and the production area because it's in the middle. You have to get the ingredients from the raw materials from the warehouses, and then once you have finished, you have to send them to the production area. Ideally, some cold rooms for different types of food. For example, a vegetables cold room, a meat and fish cold room, and a cold room for processed food, for what we have already created. Because you have to know that this zone is in charge of getting the ingredients and then preparing minimally everything for the next step, which is the cooking area. So basically here what they normally do is chopping, cutting, removing skin, and preparing the ingredients to be treated with heat afterwards. But also they create some non-heated products, such as, for example, the mayonnaise that we talked about earlier. So therefore they need small equipment for this. Then we have the culinary production. This is cooking, the cooking area, where the important things happen. It is normally in the center of the kitchen, and it is the majority of the kitchen as well. The temperature is, well, higher because they treat with heat all the time, so they have ovens and fire. Then there can also be some smoke, and the material that they use there must be easy cleaning. So the culinary production needs to follow some sanitary legislation about amplitude, location, and arrangement. It must be not less than half of the dining room in size. It must have connections with the other areas, and ideally it must have a square form because it's easy and more accessible indeed for people to work with. And then also north orientation would be optimal. This is because the sun will not hit that part of the building, and therefore as they are using already some fire and there is a lot of heat and it's a very warm room, by putting it in north orientation, then we prevent the overheating. Then about the materials. Well, the materials must be resistant, non-absorbent and non-sleepy. Here we are talking about the surfaces. Non-absorbent because if they absorb something, what will happen is the cross-contamination, because some of the bacteria will get inside and then therefore be transferred to another food. Then also, so in the kitchens, the paints must be plastic paints, rounded joints, because they prevent to have the 90-degree joint. That's a very easy place to bacteria to grow on. So having rounded joints is way better because they are easier to clean. Then also talking about lighting and ventilation. Lighting, you need to have a good visibility. You have to differentiate bright colors. This is for also the presentation of the dish. And then it must be a comfortable artificial light, and it must have a safe lighting system for example, LED. And then ventilation, we talk about the air renovation of the area, so we get some new air coming in, either via a natural or an artificial ventilation. And also because of that, because of some air from the exterior is coming in, we have to get also the insects protection, because with air can come also some insects. And then talking about specifically sanitary conditions, well, extreme cleaning is crucial. The utensils must be clean, and there is also the disinfection and the disinfestation, as well as the rat extermination. There must be no animals, no manual basin, we have to use the pedal one, and the water residues must be controlled, as well as the residues of other things, not just water, must be separated. All of this is to follow the legislation and guarantee proper sanitary conditions in the kitchen. Another culinary space zone is the distribution. This is when the dish is ready and we serve it to the dining room. We can have either a direct service or a deferred service. Direct service is when we prepare the food and we give it directly to the customer, to the client. Deferred service is when there is a refrigeration in between, or maybe a hot conservation. For example, the hot tables or trolleys or displays where food is put there with some warm water to keep it warm. Refrigeration would be, for example, dessert, a tiramisu must be put in the fridge before being served to the people. This area must be connected with the culinary and with the dining room. It's in between. And it also gets the dirty dishes and brings them to the washing area. Okay, so these were the three main premises that we have. But also we have some attached premises that they are a complement to the main ones. These are, for example, raw materials reception, or warehouses at ambient temperature, or refrigeration and freezing chambers. Here we have two main ones that we can differentiate. For example, the kitchen sink. It has a dirty and a clean area, and it is not used to store utensils. So from here, from the distribution area, when we get the dirty dishes and we bring them to the washing area, well, the kitchen sink is the washing area. And here we have the dirty, which has the dirty dishes, and the clean after cleaning them. But we cannot expect to leave them there because they can be contaminated. So we cannot store the clean utensils in the kitchen sink. And then, on the other hand, we have changing rooms and toilets. These must have lockers, benches, shoe racks, and even showers. And it is considered a dirty area, and you have to be careful to not contaminate the culinary rooms, since the changing rooms and the toilets have direct access to the culinary room, to the cooking room. So be careful with that. So now let's talk about the staff distribution. We talked about this earlier in previous videos, but this is a more complete explanation. So here we have the chef, which I like to call it the founder. And sometimes the chef and the executive chef is the same person. So the founder and the CEO. Then we have the second head chef, which is like the vice president. And then the section chef, which is the specialist. We have the cooks, which are the employees, the kitchen waiters, which are like the apprentice, and washers and helpers. These are like the cleaners. So the chef and the executive chef, which most of the times is the same person, what he does is to prepare the menu and have all the recipes and secrets about the dishes that the rest of people are going to prepare. Then the second head chef is the directive, and he manages what happens in the kitchen and coordinates all the processes. Then the section chef is the specialist of a specific meal or dish. For example, there are section chefs for meat, section chefs for sauces, section chef for desserts, whatever. And what they do is to coordinate their own section. Then the cooks. The cooks are like the employees, I said, and they follow the rules of the section chef in that area. Then the kitchen waiters, what they do is to help the cooks. For example, they bring them the knives or some ingredients, so they support the cooking process. They make it easier. And then the washers and helpers are those that, after all is done, they clean up the kitchen. Like the cleaners of an office, when everyone has done their work, at the end of the day, they come and they clean all the area. This is a very important job to make sure that the legislation about sanitary control is followed. So normally the staff is between one, which can be the chef alone, to more than 100 people working in a kitchen. They have to follow technical sanitary conditions, as I said earlier, and there is an established hierarchical order. And this is a system of sections. As I said, there is a section chef in each section. They follow the rules from the second chef, and it's a pyramid. It's a hierarchical order. And then we have the rational distribution. So how do we get things done? We follow the rule of march forward, no turning back and no crossroads. This means that when something has left, for example, the ingredients zone, and it's already in the culinary area, it can no longer go back to the ingredients zone. Same thing for the distribution. If something has left the cooking area and it's already in the distribution area, ready to be served, it can no longer go back. So we have to make sure that everything we do in each area is perfect, because there is no turning back. So, as I said, sequential arrangement of zones. To make it easier, we have here a list of the main 6 zones that exist in a kitchen. We have the reception for the raw materials, the storage, the preparation, which is the ingredients area, cooking, culinary area, the service, which is the distribution area, and then washing, which is the kitchen sink. As this is march forward, we have to do things properly. To do this, we have to differentiate between a clean and a dirty area, as we do in many of these zones here, and between hot and cold environments. And we cannot mix these things. Even in the washing one, we cannot mix. And then something very important that is revolutionary to this idea and makes everything work perfectly in most kitchens is using circuits. There are different circuits because there are some circuits for the personnel or the staff, for the raw materials, and also for the rubbish. The circuit, for example, of service, let's say. So they get the food from the cooking area, they bring it to the table, to the dining room, then they get the dirty dishes and they go to the washing area. So by following the circuits that are pre-established by the chef and by the second head chef, the kitchen must work, or should be working, just fine, following all the rules of not mixing, march forward, no turning back. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you understood everything I said. If you didn't, there is a comment section down below where you can write me something. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit on the bell icon down below so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Remember that you can download this diagram for free. It's on my website. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you in the next one. Ciao!